everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we're going to continue trying to get this Oliver 550 back up and running. We've still got quite a bit of stuff to get back on it. Another thing that needs to be addressed is all the electrical is down in here, and this was just a giant rodent nest. And I know there's a few lights and stuff that don't work. But also underneath here is the steering box. And the steering box in this thing is totally, completely wasted. So we are going to do, down the road, we're going to do, once I've got it back up and running, I've got to gather up the parts for the steering box. I need to see if this steering box is even salvageable. Sometimes when they've had loaders on them, it destroys the steering box. And if it has hurt the worm shaft and the worm nut where the balls, the recirculating balls are, it's probably junk. It may be easier just to get a different steering box. It's a Ford sourced steering box. It's a Saginaw box as used on Fords from 1950 up. But there are a few variations of it. It was first seen on the 8N, and then the N8A, the NAAs, the 100 series, and I think maybe even the 1000 series use the same steering box. So there are parts for it if we decide we need to fix it, or if we decide we need to just completely replace it. We'll have to get it out and look at it and try to determine which generation of Ford tractor it's the same as. I'm guessing it would be the same as a 100 series Ford, but we don't know. Anyway, first thing we're going to do is we've got to get this thing back on. There's a little bulkhead. Where is it? Right there, that sits on here, that supports the front end of the fuel tank and the rad shell. So there was a rubber bushing in there that, well, look at that, not much left of it. But I've got this stuff here. I think we can make this work. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to get this thing installed on here and start marching forward. I've got the fuel tank back on. I've left the hardware loose because we need this thing to be able to float around a little bit until we get the nose and the hood back on, but that's okay. It could stay loose for now. An interesting feature in this fuel tank, on a diesel engine, you need the ability to separate water because diesel fuel will get water in it, and that's very, very bad for the system. So how this does, rather than having a separate filter with a water separator built into it, like a lot of them have, this one has just got a super low spot in the fuel tank. So what you have to do is every now and then, just open this little petcock here. And if there's any water, it'll be sitting down in this low spot and it'll run out. So I took the petcock out, cleaned it all out, made sure it's good to go. And we'll see how much water we get out of this thing. Hopefully none. And this here is just the on-off tap for the actual fuel to the engine. Now we're going to go ahead, get the radiator bolted back into the rad shell. That's how it attaches to the tractor. Most tractors I've ever worked off, the radiator is bolted down to the front axle support. Not this one. The radiator actually bolts. You can see those holes there. The radiator bolts to there, and it just kind of hangs out in the front rad support. Kind of strange, but that's how they decided to do it. Holy wowzers, that was something getting that all together. You add the fact that it's all bent and smashed, and you're trying to get all these damn screws to go in. But anyway, we got it. Hopefully, after I can get the air cleaner up into there, we're going to find out one way or the other anyway. Now, what I have to do is get the radiator hoses made up and get them installed. Oh, I should make sure too, now that I've got this in here, that the fan turns without hitting the shroud. Yeah, we're good. It's clear. Perfect. So it can't be that bent. Now what we'll do, get the rad hoses in. What a thing. I can't believe it. Like, it is so difficult the hoses, like the upper hose is way up in there. What a goofy bloody thing this is. It was going to cost me about $60 to buy all the actual proper hoses for this. But you can see here, it's just 1.5 inch holes with a 90-degree part of it and 2 little straight ones. So I got this old hose from a car. We'll just use that. It'll be fine. And we'll be all set. Man, the fun never ends with this thing. Our water pump up in here from the, the Land of Almost Fits, it was cast a little bit off or machined a little bit off so that when it's so close to the engine block here, you could barely get the hose on. And once you got the hose on, you couldn't get the clamp up on. So what I've had to do is loosen the thing off, loosen it off from the engine block, get the hose on, get the clamp on. Now I got to get back in there and tighten it. But the new problem I got now is this last hose clamp up in here. Trying to get a screwdriver on it. I think I can come up through here like this and get it, but I just need a longer screwdriver. This, again, this thing. My biggest mistake, I should have taken this off before I ever brought this thing in here. Oh well. Live and learn. I keep moaning about it, but I didn't do anything about it. So now we got to try and get, you can see it in there, that last stupid clamp. And once we got that, we can put the rest of this crap back together again and maybe try and get some coolant in it. Well, here we go. I'm not sure what may or may not happen here. So what I did was I put just a gallon of water in it to see what's going to happen. And you can see here we got a leak. I got to tighten this clamp a little bit more. But that seems to be about the worst I see at the moment. There we go. That's good. Now I think I'm going to put the first gallon of coolant in and we'll see what happens. So it needs to be mixed 50-50. So what I've done is I put in a gallon of straight water. Now I'm going to put in a gallon of concentrated coolant. That'll be 50-50. And then the next gallon, I'm going to mix it before I put it in because it probably won't take the whole thing. I'm pretty sure this is the end of our troubles with diesel fuel in the oil. So I went ahead and put our new oil filter on. Now I'm going to go and put our jug of oil in the crankcase, and we can move on to getting some fuel in this thing and trying to get it primed up. Alrighty, I put 20 liters of diesel fuel in it. So now what we're going to do, you can see here there's a hand priming lever on the lift pump. So we're going to open our valve here, and that's going to let diesel fuel flow down through that line. You can see there to the inlet side of this. It'll go through the glass bowl filter here, and then it's going to go up, and we're going to pump it up into this filter until we get fuel coming out the top. There's a vent plug. We've got that removed. So that's our first step. So let's open her up. There we go. We got anything? Yeah, you can see there's fuel dripping into there. You can hear it. It's pumping. And we're just going to keep working at this. I'll be back when I've got fuel coming out there. There we are. We got fuel there. So we can close this little guy up. And we can go open up the vent on the secondary fuel filter. All right, we've got fuel coming out this one now. So we can close it up. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to keep pumping our little lever until we hear the fuel. You see there the little return line. We'll actually hear it coming up through there and dribbling into the tank. Okay, so we'll take the lid off. There, we'll hear it now. Now, remember when we realized we didn't have a gasket for this stupid thing? I was pretty sure this was going to happen. And, well, this is happening. Bloody thing. All right, we'll have to work on that. But for now, we've got it all primed up. I gotta shut the fuel off for now. No sense letting it all go all over the ground. There. That'll stop it for now, and then I'll have to see about finding a gasket for it. Well, here we go. I'm going to try and crank this thing up. We'll see what happens. I've got fuel everywhere. It's just a matter of cranking it now to let the injection pump push it up through the injector lines to the injectors, and then it'll go. I'm not sure how long that will take. All we can do is start cranking it and see what happens. Well, let's give it a little bit and see what happens, eh? Get up here. Oh, I gotta hook up the battery. There we go. Well, I think that's neutral. See what happens. You don't want to crank on it too long. You gotta let the starter have a rest in between. I was starting to get a little tiny bit of mist coming out here, which means there's some fuel getting to the injectors now, but not enough to fire it. So that's a good sign, but the battery died. So I got the charger on it now. We'll let it charge up and we'll try again. She's trying. She's trying. Come on. Stupid battery connection. She'll go, sir. Just right now, gotta let the battery charge up. Alright, we got her running. I gotta let it warm up a little bit. See if this clears up. Give me a minute. I think it's not charging, but that's we'll deal with that tomorrow. For now, we got it running. That's the main thing. I had it running again and checked with my meter. It is definitely not charging. So it's got this whole generator and a regulator, and there's wires taped up all over the place. So we're just going to get rid of that and put an alternator on it. Here's one that I found in the shed. It's been converted to one-wire operation, so we have to see if it works. So we've just got a battery here. I've got the hot stud of the alternator hooked up to the positive of the battery. We're going to hook up the negative terminal to the case and just give it a spin. And you can feel it's got some resistance on it now. See that? And when we unhook it, see how it spins? So this alternator works. We can go ahead and put it on. There we are. It fits in like it grew there. Alternators are generally a little bit fatter around than generators. So you need to bear that in mind when you're swapping one up. Now thankfully this one, because it's a little bit fatter, so I can't get it quite as close to the block as the generator would have been, but it uses a much smaller pulley, and that buys us a little space. So we're able to, I can get my hand down and around it. We have space. We're all good. Now we just got to run a decent sized conductor, like at least a number 10, from this back to the battery, and we should be able to charge. The fun never ends with this thing. Everything you touch disintegrates. Now I've got the starter off of it because I need to put the charge wire on the alternator and run it to this stud here on the starter. And when I took the nut luck, it's all falling apart. So we have to get the solenoid off and see if we can come up with something better than that. Okay, so we've got this stud cleaned up and mounted back in there. Now we're going to put this thing back together, and I think I've got a solution for our... See, we're missing 1/4 of an inch of thread on the end of this stud, but I think I figured out how to get around that. So there's the starter all fixed up. I just had enough thread left on the stud that I could get this first cable on because it wouldn't reach any further. That goes up to feed the starting aid. And then I put on this little bus bar here. It's just a little bracket. But then that gives me something solid to bolt all these other cables to. So that's all good. Now what we're up against is the starting aid, which is this here. The switch is buggered. It doesn't do anything. And it goes to this heat coil that's in the intake tract here. And that works basically the same as the grid heaters in a 5.9 Cummins. We're all kind of familiar with that. It's not exactly as good as a glow plug, but it is what it is. And these older diesel engines, they don't have the compression that modern ones have. They need all the help they can get to get started in cooler weather. So we really need that starting aid to be working. Here's a new one. You can see here, compared to the old one, this is a really cheesy piece of poo-poo. It's all open like this thing. If I put it on that tractor, it's just going to end up full of water and fail very soon. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and take this one apart and see if it's just got dirty contacts in it or something. Otherwise, we're just going to have to put that one in and hope for the best. But let's see what we can do with this one. All you have to do is undo those crimps and it comes apart. And there you can see our problem. It's been full of water. So we're going to get this all cleaned up and then we'll see if we'll test it and see if it works. There we go, back together, and the multimeter says it works. So now we can put it back in and try our starting aid. Okay, it's working now. I can hear crackly poppy noises in there, and it's hard to see on the video, but there's smoke coming out, and the pipe is warming up. That's good. Okay, so our starting aid is working. Perfect. Now we're going to see if we can get this thing to start and see if it's going to charge. We've got the starting aid going right now. I don't think it'll do too much because the intake tract is open. Huh. Now it doesn't turn over. Okay, hang on. All right, she's charging. Okay, now I got to try and fish the air cleaner back up into here and get it bolted onto this bulkhead here. That should be quite fun. I might take this thing off. It might give me a little bit more room if it'll come off. In the end, I had to pull the fuel tank back out so I could get at these two bolts for the air cleaner. I probably could have got away with just these two, which I could get at, but it just bothers me leaving stuff undone, you know, when I know it should be done. What we're going to do now is get the air cleaner cup serviced up and get it put back on. Because that is yuck. So we'll drain this out. And then we'll clean the cup all out and fill it up with fresh oil up to that line and put it on, and that'll be ready, good to go. There we are, all cleaned up with fresh oil in it. Now we can put it up. These things are a bit of, they're a bit of work to maintain, but there is nothing better at filtering air than an oil bath air cleaner. Awesome. Now we got that done. We can go ahead and put the hood back on, and this thing is going to start looking like its old self again. I went ahead and put a cutoff switch on this here battery. It's something I put on all my stuff, but on this one especially I need it because this alternator has been converted to one wire operation, so it doesn't have the exciter circuit in it. It simply is one wire, and when it starts turning, it starts charging. The problem with that is it's always drawing a little bit of current into the regulator. So it's okay if you drive the thing every day or you're using it frequently, but if it's going to sit around like this one is going to, this will eventually run your battery down. So when you got these one wire conversions, you got to have a kill switch on the battery. I crudely got the exhaust attached to the hood, so it's on there good and solid. Eventually, we will have to replace the muffler, and at that point, we'll get the right muffler and the right stack, and it'll all go together properly like it's supposed to. But for now, this is what we got, so this is what we're using. Wow, I think we're just about ready to try and get this thing out of here. I do want to blow up the front tires. Anything I can do to help steer this thing, I got to do. Well, now we're going to see if we can get this thing outside. Let me get the battery turned on. I got the fuel open. And then we're going to leave it out overnight and see if it'll start outside tomorrow when it's cold. Come on. There it goes. All right, I'll see you in a minute. Well, that was pretty interesting. I went for a test drive, and I was just about to grab the camera and show you how great the thing was working. There was no more smoke, no smoke at all. It's an old diesel, so if you yank the throttle, you get a little wisp of black smoke come out of it. But aside from that, it was working great. There was no smoke at all, and it was running great. And then I said, I could smell kind of an electrical thing, and I looked. Just as I looked down, I saw this cable come apart. And I said, that's interesting. And if I grabbed that and held that to this while it was running, it would spark, and this cable would start getting hot. Interesting. But you don't see the charge wire. No evidence of it being hot. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. And then, to add a little more intrigue here, somehow this thing, that's the throttle lever that it goes back up into the steering area. It got hot enough that it melted right off. Look at how hot that's been. That was red hot, and this melted right off. And I need to figure out why that did that. I guess something was getting live and it was going to ground. So I'm going to have to just bite the bullet and take this all apart. We're going to have to rewire the whole thing. And I guess we'll deal with the steering box while that's apart. For now, what I've got to do is this wire here goes up into the dash. Now, look at, it's all cracked. We'll have to figure this out. I just unhook this wire, but I'm afraid that once I do that, that's probably feeding the solenoid, the ignition switch, and I won't be able to operate the solenoid. So we'll figure it out. Part of the problem could have been, and my fault entirely, this battery terminal is dirty, and we could have had a bad connection here. which would make the alternator work really hard trying to push current through this bad connection, and it'll find the weakest link, which is this lead, and melt it. That's just a theory at this point. I still don't know how that throttle linkage would have melted unless something up in here, it was somehow getting a ground through that. It's also possible there's something wrong with the alternator itself. I don't know. But anyway, I've got a new cable on here with clean connections. And I'm going to see if I can fire it up, and we'll see what happens. So I've got the battery hooked up. The switch is closed, and I've got the ignition on. And we're just sitting here seeing what's happening. I'm going to work the throttle. We're going to listen for sparks or arcs or anything like that. Look for smoke. Nothing. Okay, I'm going to open the doors and see if I can fire this thing up and see what happens. All right, well, it started right up. It runs good, but it is no longer charging. So the alternator, I wonder if something just went wrong with the alternator. So we're going to put another alternator on it. Unfortunately, it won't be a one-wire one. It'll be a more than one-wire one, but we'll make that work. I got a bad feeling I'm going to have to rewire it now. So anyway, that's fine. Whatever. That's going to be a whole nother video. We're going to tear into that tomorrow and go from there. Anyway, it's all good. She runs good. This thing runs really, really good. The transmission works nice. So maybe it's a keeper after all. Anyway, I'm going to take off now. In the next video, we'll get to work on this electrical stuff and maybe have a go at the steering box. Anyway, until then, I'm Kevin saying so long from the Claremont Classic Garage.